All right, Book X, Book 10 of the Odyssey by Homer. Two books ago, two chapters ago, Odysseus was at a party that Alcinous was throwing him at Alcinous' place, and Odysseus ends up telling his story to the whole congregation of his journeys and travels and sufferings. And as far as I can gather, he's still telling that story. So, last chapter, he went to the Lotus Eaters and the Cyclops. And now they're on to some next place. Book X. The Island of the Winds. The Land of the Midnight Sun. Circe. Okay. We came next to the island of Aeolia. I know that's not Aeoli, but next we came to the island of Aeolia. There lived Aelos Hippotades. Aelos Hippotades, a friend of the immortal gods. In a floating island, right round it was built a brazen wall unbreakable, and the rock ran up smooth and straight. Iolos? I don't know how to say that. Iolos had a family of 12 children, 6 daughters and 6 sons in their prime. The daughters he had given to the sons as wives. Whoa. The daughters he had given to the sons as wives? All these live together and dine with their father and their excellent mother. There is always a fine spread of victuals and infinite variety. All day and every day the house is full of the steam of cooking, and the courtyard resounds with busy noise. All night they sleep beside their faithful wives on bedsteads of neat joinery, covered with blankets and rugs. We entered this city, with its fine houses, and there spent a whole month as guests. Iolos wanted to know. Iolos wanted to know all about Ilion and the Achaean fleet and how they returned home, and I told him the whole history from beginning to end. When at last I spoke of leaving and asked him for help on our way, he was glad to consent and did everything he could. He gave me the skin of a 9-year ox, which he flayed for us and made into a bag. And in this bottled up the blistering winds. And in this he bottled up the blustering winds. For Cronion had appointed him to be manager of the winds. For Cronion had appointed him to be manager of the winds, to hold them or to let them go as he liked. On board my ship he tied up the bag with wire of shining silver, so tight that not a breath could blow out. But he left the west wind free to blow, that it might carry our ships along. This bag of winds! As it turned out, this was of no use, for we spoilt all by our own folly. 9 days we sailed all day and night. On the 10th day our native land came in sight. We came so close that we could see them tending their fires. All that time I had held the sheet in my hand and let no one else touch it, to make sure of a quicker passage home. But when I saw the island I fell into a deep sleep, for I was tired out. Then the men began to talk to one another. Said there must be gold and silver in that bag. Presents from the generous Aeolus Hippotades. And this is the sort of thing they were whispering. Upon my word, the man is a prime favorite, wherever he goes. Plenty of treasures from the spoils of Troy, and we who travel the same road had come home with empty hands. Now again here is Aeolus, obliging him with more generous gifts. Here, quick, let's look and see what he has got, how much gold and silver there is in this bag. A scandalous motion. But it was past. They opened the bag, the winds leaped out. At once a gale caught them and carried them off to the sea, tearing their hair as they left their native land behind. Whoa. This waked me up. I did not know what to do, whether to throw myself overboard and be drowned, or grin and bear it in the land of the living. Well, I just bore it and stayed where I was. I covered my head and lay down, while the ships were driven by the gale back to the Isle of Aiolos, amid the lamentations of my companions. So we went ashore, and took in fresh water, and the men had their meal beside the ships. So we went ashore, and took in fresh water, and the men had their meal beside the ships. When we had finished, I took with me a herald and one other, and went on to the house of Aiolos. We found him feasting with his wife and children. When we entered the hall, and sat on the threshold near the door, they called out, in great astonishment, "What has brought you here, Odysseus? What ill luck has touched you? Surely we did everything we could to help you, that you might return safely to your native land, or anywhere else you wanted to go." I answered sorrowfully, "Everything has been spoiled by the fault of my men." And sleep on the top of that. Confound it! Do help us, friends. You have the power. My coaxing was of no use. They were dumbfounded, and the father said, "Get out of this island at once, you miserable sinner. It is not permitted to comfort the enemy of the blessed gods. Get out of this. You are the gods' enemy. Come to my doors." Thus he turned me out of his house in deep distress. From that place we sailed on disheartened. The spirit of the men was worn out by the labor of rowing, all their own fault, for there was no wind to help us now. 6 days we carried on, all night and all day. On the 7th we reached the lofty stronghold of Lamos Lastrygonian Telepylos. Woohoo! First try. Where herdsman hails herdsman, as one brings in his droves and the other answers as he drives out his. There was a man who could do without sleep, could earn double wages. There a man who could do without sleep, could earn double wages, one by minding cattle, one by pasturing sheep, for the paths of day and night are close together. We entered a fine harbor, with precipitous cliffs running all around. At the mouth are 2 headlands projecting front to front, and the entry is narrow. All the others steered their ships in, and moored them inside the harbor close together, for there were no waves. This picture suggests rumor of the land of the midnight sun. For there were no waves riding inside. Large or small, only white calm all round. But I alone made fast my ship outside at the very end of the point, hitching ropes over the rocks. Then I climbed the cliff and stood still to get a good view. There was no arable land or garden to be seen, but we saw smoke rising in the air, so I sent some men to find out who the natives were. 2 picked men with a third as their spokesman. They went ashore, and proceeded along a leveled road which was used by carts to carry down wood from the hills into the city. They came across a girl close to the city, drawing water, the sturdy daughter of Lastrygonian Antiphades. She had come down to a running spring named Artesi, from which they used to get water for the city. The men slopped and asked who was king in those parts, and who the people were. She answered at once, and pointed out her father's lofty roof. When they entered the house, there they found his wife, a woman as big as the peak of a mountain. and they hated her at sight. She sent at once to summon her husband Antiphates from the town meeting. He gave them a murderous reception, one he grabbed at once and one prepared for supper. The other two ran away and managed to get back to the ships, but the monster made a hue and cry through the city. Out came the Lastrigionians, rushing from every direction in thousands, great inhuman wretches like giants. They threw showers of stones from the cliff, each as big as a man could lift, and mighty din there was, smashing of ships and crushing of men. The giants speared them like fishes, and carried them home for a horrid supper. While this massacre was going on in the deep harbor, I drew my sword and cut the hawsers of my ship, and told my men to put their backs into it if they wanted to save their lives. Then row they did, with the fear of death to help them. We blessed the open sea when we got clear of those grim rocks. My ship was the only one which escaped. All the rest were lost. From that place we sailed on. They just keep sailing. People just keep dying, and they just keep sailing on. From that place we sailed on, glad enough to have come off with our lives, but sad to lose our companions. Next we reached the island of Aiea. Aiea. Island of Aiea. There Circe lived, a terrible goddess with lovely hair, who spoke in the language of men, own sister to murderous Aetas. Their mother was Perse, a daughter of Oceanus. We brought our ship to the shore in silence, and some providence guided us into a harbor where ships could lie. There we spent 2 days and 2 nights on shore, eating out our hearts with weariness and woe. On the 3rd day, as soon as dawn showed the first streaks of light, I took spear and sword and climbed to a high place, where I had a look round to see if there was anyone about, or any voice to be heard. Standing on top of a rock, I saw smoke rising into the air from the house where Circe lived in the middle of thick bushes and trees. When I saw the smoke glowing, I considered whether I should go and inquire. But the best plan seemed to be that I should return first to our ship on the shore and give the men something to eat, and then send out to inquire. Just as I came near to the ship, some god must have pitied me there so lonely, and sent me a stag with towering antlers right on my path. He was going down to the river from his woodland range to drink, for the sun's heat was heavy on him. As he came out, I struck him on the spine in the middle of the back, and the spear ran right through. Down he fell in the dust with a moan, and died. I set my foot on him and drew out the spear from the wound. Then I laid the body flat on the ground and pulled a quantity of twigs and withies, which I plaited across and twisted into a strong rope of fathoms length. With this rope, I tied together the legs of the great creature and strung him up over my neck, and so carried him down to the ship, leaning upon my spear. I could not have carried him on the shoulder with one hand, for he was a huge beast. I threw him down in front of the ship and cheered on my friends with encouraging words as I turned from one to another. We are not going to die yet, my friends. For all our troubles, we shall not see the house of Hades. Ooh, we shall not see the house of Hades. Before our day comes, while there's food and drink in the ship, don't let us forget to eat. We need not die of starvation, at all events. They were all sitting about with their faces muffled up in their cloaks, but at my words they threw off the cloaks and got up quickly to stare at the stag lying on the beach, for he was a huge beast. When they had feasted their eyes on the welcome sight, they began to think of another kind of feast, so they swilled their hands in due form and got him ready. All day long until sunset we sat enjoying ourselves with our meat and wine, and when the sun went down and the darkness came, we lay down to sleep on the seashore. Just always doing that. I guess that's what you do. I guess that's what you do when you're just sailing around. You just sail around and just sleep on the beach from time to time. We lay down to sleep on the seashore. As soon as morning dawned, I called my companions together and addressed them. My friends, we do not know east from west. We don't know where the sun rises to give light to all mankind, and where he goes down under the earth. Well then, what are we to do? We must try to think of something at once, and for my part, I can't think of anything. I have just been up on the cliffs to look around. We are on some island in the middle of the sea, with no land in sight. The island is flat, and I saw smoke rising in the air above a coppice of bushes and trees. When I said this, their hearts were crushed with foreboding, for they remembered the doings of the Strigionian Antiphates, and the violence of that audacious cannibal, the goggle-eyed Cyclops. The tears ran down their cheeks, and much good it did to weep. However, I divided them into 2 parts of equal number, and chose a captain for each. One I took myself, the other I gave to an excellent man, Eurylocus. Quickly, then, we shook lots in a helmet, and out leapt the lot of Eurylocus. Off he went, with his 22 men, groaning and grumbling, and we were left groaning and grumbling behind. They found in a dell the house of Circe, well built with shaped stones and set in a clearing. All round it were wolves and lions of the mountains, really men whom she had bewitched by giving them poisonous drugs. They did not attack the men, but romped up, fawning on them and wagging their long tails, just like a lot of dogs playing about their master when he comes out after dinner, because they know he has always something nice for them in his pocket. So these wolves and lions with their sharp claws pawed about and pawed my men, who were frightened out of their wits by the terrible creatures. They stopped at the outer doors of the courtyard and heard the beautiful goddess within singing in a lovely voice, as she worked at the web on her loom, a large web of incorruptible stuff, a glorious thing of delicate gossamer fabric, such as goddesses make. The silence was broken by Polites, who was nearest and dearest to me of all my companions, and the most trusty. He said, "Friends, I hear a voice in the house, some woman singing prettily at the loom, and the whole place echoes with it. Goddess or woman, let's go in and speak to her." Then they called her loudly. She came out at once and opened the shining doors and asked them to come in. They all followed her, in their innocence. Only Eurylocus remained behind, for he suspected a trap. She gave them all comfortable seats, and made them a posset. Cheese and meal and pale honey mixed with Parmenian wine. But she put dangerous drugs in the mess, to make them wholly forget their native land. When they had swallowed it, she gave them a tap of her wand at once, and herded them into pens. For they now had pigs' heads and grunts and bristles, pigs all over, except that their minds were the same as before. There they were then, miserably shut up in the pigsty. Circe threw them a lot of beechnuts and acorns and cornel beans to eat, such as the earth-bedded swine are used to. But Eurylocus came back to the ship to tell the tale of his companions and their unkind fate. At first he could not utter a word. He was so dumbfounded with this misfortune. His eyes were full of tears. His mind foreboded trouble. At last, when we were fairly flummoxed with asking questions, he found his tongue and told us how all his companions had come to grief. We went out into the wood, as you told us, most renowned chief. Found a well-built house in a dell. Found a well-built house in a dell there. Someone was singing loudly as she worked the loom, goddess or woman. They called to her. She came out at once and opened the doors and asked them in. They all followed in the simplicity of their hearts. But I stayed behind, because I suspected a trap. They all disappeared at once. Not a soul was to be seen, and I stayed there a long time to spy. When he said this, at once I slung my sword over my shoulders, the large one, bronze with silver knobs, and the bow with it, and told him to go back with me and show me the way. But he threw his arms about my knees and begged and prayed without disguise. "Don't take me there, my prince. I don't want to go. Let me stay here. I am sure you will never come back again, nor will anyone who goes with you. Let us get away with those who are here while we can. We have still a chance to escape the day of destruction." But I answered, "Very well, Eurolocos, you may stay here in this place. Eat and drink beside the ship. But as for me, go I must, and go I will." Ooh. Go I must, and go I will. So I made my way up from the seaside, but just as I was on the point of entering the sacred dell and finding the house of that mistress of many spells, who should meet me but Hermes, with his golden rod. He looked like a young man with the first down on his lap, in the most charming time of youth. He grasped my hand and said, "Whither away again, you poor fellow? Alone on the hills in a country you do not know? Your companions are shut up in yonder in Circe's, like so many pigs cozy in their pigsties. Are you going to set them free? Why, I warn you that you will never come back. You will stay here with the others. All right? I will help you and keep you safe. Here, take this charm, and then you may enter the house of Circe. This will keep destruction from your head. I will reveal to you all reveal to you all the malign arts of Circe. She will make you a posset and put drugs in the mess, but she will not be able to bewitch you for all that. For the good charm which I will give you will foil her. I will tell you exactly what to do. As soon as Circe gives you a tap with her long rod, draw your sword at once and rush upon her as if you were meant to kill her. She will be terrified and will invite you to lie with her. Do not refuse, for you want her to free your companions and to entertain you. But tell her to swear the most solemn oath of the blessed gods that she will never attempt any other evil against you, or else when you are stripped she may unman you and make you a weakling." With these words, Agrifontes handed me the charm which he had pulled out of the soil, and explained its nature. The root was black, but the flower was milk white. The gods call it moly. It is hard for mortals to find it, but the gods can do all things. Then Hermes departed through the woody island to high Olympus, but I went on to Circe's house, and I mused deeply as I went. I stood at the doors, and as I stood I called loudly, and the beautiful goddess heard. Quickly she came out and opened the doors, and I followed her, much troubled. She led me to a fine carven chair covered with silver knobs, with a footstool for my feet. Then she mixed me a posset, and dropped in her drugs with her heart full of wicked hopes. I swallowed it, but I did not bewitch me. Then she gave me a tap with her wand and said, "Now then, to the sty with you, and join your companions." I drew my sharp sword and leapt at Circe as though to kill her. She let out a loud shriek, and ran up and embraced my knees, and blurted out in dismay, "Who are you? Where do you come from in the wide world? Where is your city? Who are your parents? I am amazed that you have swallowed my drugs, and you are not bewitched. Indeed, there never was another man who could stand these drugs once he had let them pass his teeth. But you must have a mind that cannot be bewitched. Surely you are Odysseus, the man who is never at a loss. Agrifontes' goldenrod used to say that you would come on your way from Troy in a ship. Come now, put up your sword in the sheath. Let us lie down on my bed and trust each other in love." I answered her, "Ah, Circe, how could you bid me? How could you bid me be gentle with you, when you have turned my companions into pigs in this house? And now that you have me here, with deceitfulness in your heart, you bid me to go to your bed in your chamber. That when I am stripped you may unman me and make me a weakling. I will not enter your bed unless you can bring yourself to swear a solemn oath that you will never attempt anything evil against me." She swore the oath at once, and when she had sworn the oath fully and fairly, I entered the bed of Circe. Meanwhile, the 4 maids who served her had been doing their work in the house. These were daughters of springs and trees and sacred rivers that run down into the sea. One of them spread fine coverings upon the seats, a linen sheet beneath, and a purple cloth upon it. The second drew tables of silver in front of the seats, and laid on them golden baskets. The third mixed wine in a silver mixer, delicious honey-hearted wine, and set out cups of gold. The fourth brought water and kindled a great fire under a copper. The water grew warm, and when it boiled in the glittering cauldron, she led me to the bath, and bathed me with water out of the cauldron, when she had tempered it to a pleasant warmth, pouring it over my head and shoulder to soothe the heartbreaking weariness from my limbs. And when she had bathed me and rubbed me with olive oil, she gave me a tunic and a wrap to wear. Then she led me to the fine carven seat and set a footstool under my feet and invited me to fall to. But this displeased me. I sat still half dazed, and my heart was full of foreboding. Full of foreboding. When Circe noticed that I sat still and did not touch the victuals, when she saw how deeply I was troubled, she came near and spoke her mind plainly. "Why do you sit there like a dumb man, Odysseus, and eat your heart out instead of eating your dinner? I suppose you expect some other treachery. You need not be afraid. I have sworn a solemn oath." I answered, Circe, what man with any decent feeling could have the heart to taste food and drink, until he should see his friends free and standing before his eyes? If you really mean this invitation to eat and drink, set them free, that I may see my friends before my eyes. Then Circe took her wand in hand, and walked through the hall, and opened the doors of the sty, and drove them out. Looking like a lot of 9-year hogs, as they stood there, she went among them, and rubbed a new drug upon each. Then the bristles all dropped off, which the pernicious drug had grown upon their skin. They became men once more, younger than they were before, and handsomer, and taller. They knew me, and each grasped my hand. They sobbed aloud for joy till the hall rang again with the noise. And even the goddess was touched. She came close to me and said, "Prince Laertes, Odysseus never at fault. Go down to the seashore where your ship lies. First of all, draw up the ship on the beach, and stow all the goods and tackle in the cave. Then come back yourself and bring the rest of your companions with you." So I went. And when I reached the shore, I found my companions sitting beside the ship in deep distress. But as soon as they saw me, they were like so many calves in a barnyard, skipping about a drove of cows as they come back to the midden after a good feed of grass. They cannot keep in their pens, but frolic round their dams, lowing in a deafening chorus. So the men crowded round me, with tears running down over their cheeks. They felt as glad as if they had come back to their native land, to rugged Ithaca, their home where they were born and bred, and they cried out from their hearts, "You are back again, my prince! How glad we are! As glad as if we had come safe home to Ithaca. Now do tell us what has become of our companions." I answered gently, "First of all, we will draw up the ship on shore, and store the tackle and all of our belongings in some cave. Then bestir yourselves and come with me, all of you, and you shall see your companions in the sacred house of Circe. Eating and drinking, they have enough and to spare." At once they set about the work. And now, what should I see but Eurylochus alone, trying to stop them? He made no secret of his thoughts. "Oh, you poor fools!" he cried out. "Where are we going? Do you want to run your heads into trouble? Go to Circe's house, and let her turn you all into lions or wolves to keep watch for her whether we like it or not. It's just Cyclops all over again, when our fellows went into his yard, and this same bold Odysseus with them. It was only his rashness that brought them to destruction. Ooh. When I heard this, I thought for a moment that I would draw my sword and cut off his head, and let it roll on the ground, for all he was my near relation. But the others held me back, and did their best to soften me. Let us leave the man here, Prince, if you please. Let him stay by the ship and look after the ship. Lead the way. We are going with you to Circe's house. Then away they went, up from the shore. Indeed, Eurylochus would not be left behind. He came too, for he had a terror of my rough tongue. Then Circe gave a bath in her house to my companions, and had them rubbed with olive oil, and gave them tunics and woolen wraps. We found all the others feasting merrily in the hall. Feasting merrily in the hall. When they saw one another, face to face, and knew one another, their feelings were too much for them. They made such a noise that the roof rang again, and the radiant goddess came up to me and said, "No more lamentations now, Odysseus. I know myself how many hardships you have suffered on the seas." No more lamentations now, Odysseus. I know myself how many hardships you have suffered on the seas, and how many cruel enemies have attacked you on land. Now then, eat your food and drink your wine, until you become as gay as when you first left your rugged home in Ithaca. Just now, you are withered and downhearted. You can't forget your dismal wanderings. Your feelings are not in tune with good cheer, for assuredly you have suffered much. We took her advice, and there we remained for a whole year, with plenty to eat and good wine to drink. But when the year was past, and the seasons came round again, my companions called me aside and said, "Good heavens, have you forgotten home altogether?" "Do you remember it? If it is really fated that you shall have a safe return to your great house in your native land?" And so, when I came to Circe's bed, I entered her earnestly, and she listened to what I had to say. "Keep the promise you made me, Circe, that you should help me on my homeward way. My mind is set upon it, and my companions too. They were worrying about it, and grumbling all round me when you are not by." She answered, "Prince Laertiades, Prince Laertiades, never baffled Odysseus. I would not have you remain in my house unwillingly. But there is another journey you must make first. You must go to the house of Hades and awful Persiphonia." Or is that just Persephone? Let's just say it. Right? To ask directions from Tiresias. Tiresias? 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 Tiresias. The blind Theban seer. Tiresias the blind Theban seer. His mind is still sound, for even in death Persephone has left him his reason. He alone has sense, and others are flitting shadows. This fairly broke my heart. I sat on the bed and groaned, and I no longer cared to live and see the light of the sun. But when I had worked off my feelings by groaning and writhing, I said to her, "O Circe, who will be our guide to that place? No one has ever traveled to Hades in a ship." The beautiful goddess answered, You need not hang about the ship and wait till a guide turns up. Set your mast, hoist your sail, and sit tight. The north wind will take you along. When you have crossed over the ocean, you will see a low shore, and the groves of Persiphonia, tall poplars and fruit-wasting willows. There beach your ship beside deep eddying Oceanus, and go on yourself to the moldering house of Hades. There into Acheron, the river of pain, two streams flow. Pyriphlegethon, blazing with fire, and Kos Cositos, resounding with lamentation, which is a branch of the hateful water of Styx. A rock is there, by which the two roaring streams unite. Draw near to this brave man, and be careful to do as I bid you. Dig a pit of about 1 cubit's length along and across, and pour it into a drink offering for all souls, first with honey and milk, then with fine wine, third time with water. Sprinkle over it white barley meal. Pray earnestly to the empty shells of the dead. Promise that if you return to Ithaca, you will sacrifice to them a pharaoh cow, the best you have, and heap the burning pile with fine things. And to Tiresias alone in a different place, you will dedicate the best black ram you have in your flocks. After that, when you have made your prayers to the goodly company of the dead, the goodly company of the dead, sacrifice a black ram and a black ewe, turning their heads down towards Erebos. Then turn back yourself and move towards the ocean shore. The souls of the dead who have passed away will come in crowds. Then call your companions, and bid them flay and burn the bodies which lie slaughtered, and pray to the gods, to mighty Hades and awful Persephone. Draw your sword and sit still, but let none of the empty shells of the dead approach the blood before you ask Tiresias what you want to know. The seer will come at once, and he will tell you the way and the measure of your path, and how you may return home over the fish-giving sea. Even as she spoke, the dawn came enthroned in gold. Circe gave me tunic and cloak to wear, and herself put on a white shining robe, delicate and lovely, with a fine girdle of gold about her waist, and drew a veil over her head. I went through the house and aroused my companions, speaking gently to each man as I stood by him. Sleep is sweet. But now, no more drowsy slumber. Let us go. Circe has told me what to do. They obeyed me with full courage. But even there, we had trouble before we left. One of us, Elpenor, the youngest of all, one not so very valiant in war or steady in mind, had been sleeping by himself on the roof to get cool. Being heavy with wine, he heard the noise and hurry, but his poor wits forgot to come down again by the long ladder. He fell off the roof and broke his neck, and his soul went down to Hades. What? When the men had all come, I said to them, "No doubt you think we are going straight home, but Circe has marked out another road for us, to the house of Hades and awful Persephone." When I said this, it fairly broke their hearts. They sat down where they were. They groaned and tore their hair. But it did them no good to lament. While we were on the way to our ship in sorrow and mourning, Circe had got back there before us and left fastened near the ship a black ram and ewe. She slipped past us easily. Who could set eyes on a god if he did not wish it, going this way or coming that way? Jeez. That was a roller coaster. So there you have it. That was booked. That was pretty good. And we'll catch you next time. Book 7. See you then.